right?
Yeah, like in the last 60 days, it's like, remember how we were having the tennis conversation? I was texting you about how our tennis coach
Yep.
like told me tennis players just like it's like they just jump up a level one day.
Yep.
Like that's kind of like what happened to her, like lifestyle wise in the last 60 days. It's like she literally just jumped up a level. So it's kind of been like, oh, okay. All right.
1, 2, 3,
Good.
2, 2, 3.
This is between 9th and 10th grade, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
It's around the time we actually met. So.
I was just thinking the same thing.
So we got 2 great songs to cover together.
Yeah, we do.
I think I'm excited about this.
Today we're doing Biggie's Juicy, which is the first Biggie song we've done. I'm surprised by that. Like now that I think back through it, like actually this is the first one we've done. We talked about doing another one previously, but we're going to do Juicy today, and Oasis's song Live Forever, which is from their first album. Not their most famous song, but certainly a famous one. So yeah, it ought to be an interesting conversation.
Is it fair to say that Live Forever is what made them famous?
That album made them famous for sure. That song and Rock and Roll Star, which is also on the same album, are probably the first jump. Generally speaking, or I don't know about rock and roll history wise, but like my memory of it, because these songs were Live Forever was 94 also, so which is the same time Juicy was. So my memory of that, this time I was 13, 14, 15 years old. My memory of this Oasis time is that that album, definitely maybe their first one that Live Forever comes from, didn't really come across to the United States. Like I didn't start hearing those songs on the radio on 106.5 in Charlotte until like after What's the Story, Morning Glory, which is the next album with Wonderwall and Champagne Supernova and Don't Look Back in Anger and all those huge hits. So my memory, this may be not true historically, but like my memory of the time is that they crossed over the pond, so to speak, with What's the Story, Morning Glory, and then people backfilled this album in.
But What's the Story, Morning Glory is like the following year or two, though, correct?
Yeah, it's pretty soon thereafter. I can look.
Right.
I was saying 95 or 6. Yeah.
Right. So I mean, so you're probably catching this about what 97-ish is what you're feeling like, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. That's fair. Juicy is a little bit different in that regard. What's the word on that anyway? How quick did they release those?
95, October 95. Yeah.
Okay, so their jump over the pond was a fairly quick one. So
yeah. It was. I wrote it down on here too. I think I wrote it down because it was important. The definitely maybe that album came out in August of 94, and Juice, like the Biggie's album, came out 2 weeks later. So the actual album release dates were 2 weeks apart. And yeah. so and then Morning Glory was a year later after that.
Juicy was actually released as a single that same month too, like officially.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of historical context to Juicy that I'm going to kind of unpack and connect.
Yeah, we need to.
You're going to enjoy. Yeah, and it's one of the most important hip hop records ever.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the most joyful hip hop records ever. It's one of the most honest hip hop records ever. You know, the way that he even starts off the song is important before he actually starts rapping.
That's the first note I have there too. I want you to talk about it first, but yeah.
No, I want to actually hear your question first, because I actually think this is one of those episodes where your questions are going to help me unravel and unpack so many things that I probably plan on saying, but it's going to come off better in that type of dialogue, I feel.
Like, I mean, the opening, what he says at the beginning, and this is, for all the teachers who told me I'd never amount to nothing and whatever. So, I mean, I'm a teacher, obviously, so that perks my ear up immediately. Okay. Because like it helps me focus on it's a reminder that the people who are good at school are not necessarily the ones who are going to be successful in life, and people have other skills beyond just my classroom. So it's a good reminder not to, I mean, there are teachers in the world that say, you're a sorry piece of crap, you're never going to amount to nothing, right? Like there are people that say that. Yeah. I would never say those words directly, but I don't want my actions to imply that. either. So it made me more conscious of that, to start with. That's, I mean, obviously he says other things at the beginning too, but
Well, go ahead.
go ahead. That was all.
So let's unpack everything that he's saying, because what he really does is he actually breaks down a lot of his socio-economic background and environment before he starts rapping. This goes out to all the teachers that told me I would never amount to nothing. That lets you know that he's coming from a substandard school system, obviously, because I've I've had teachers espouse rhetoric like that to me before, and it's been when I've lived in the most substandard living conditions, area-wise. Okay. Then he goes, "This is for the people who called the police on me when I was just hustling." Listen to what he says. Trying to feed my daughter. See, he's like letting them know, it's like, you're calling the police on me like I'm an animal, but you don't even understand it. I don't want to do this. And what he is expressing right there when he says, this is for all the people that called the police on me when I was just trying to make some money to feed my daughter. Well, that connects to what the teachers are saying about how he's not going to be anything. See, he's connecting the dots actually for you about what his life is like. He's like, well, I don't have the skills. Remember that skill set you were just speaking of that doesn't necessarily make people successful? Well, he's got people telling him, well, you're going to be unsuccessful in school. The people that he's living with in his apartment building are calling the police on him because he's a drug dealer. See, he's dealing with conflict and people thinking the worst of him everywhere. That's why he lets you know, I'm just trying to make some money to feed my daughter. Like, you don't even really know me. And then he says
that connects to, I have to say this too, because I wrote it down because it was one of those moments. Most of these things connect to things that he says later in the song too, because he has the line about putting 5 carrots in his baby girl's ear. Like that's the other side of that story, right? Like that's the went from negative to positive, right? I mean, that's the other end of that.
Correct. So he's letting you know what it was literally like for him right before all of this, before fame happened. He's literally letting you know in a brief little intro what his life was like. Yeah, my teachers told me I wasn't worth a damn. I'm living with these people who keep calling the police on me because I'm a drug dealer, but really I got a baby girl and I'm really just finding a way to feed her. I'm a high school dropout. You know what I'm saying? And then he brings it back to the community. And for all the niggas in the struggle, it's all good. Listen to everything. Just talked about all those negative things. And then he said, for all of my people in the struggle. And then he literally goes, it's all good, baby, baby. Like he breathes like literally hope and life all into that, all that despair he just explained before he starts rapping.
Right. Like if I can do this, then like it's possible for you too. It's not.
Yes. And that's the connectivity of this song. There's not anybody with superstar charisma that ever probably connected the people on the level that he connected to people on this song. Because, well, if you're a hip hop fan, even the way it starts off is a piece of history. He said, it was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine, Salt and Pepper and Heavy D up in the limousine. Now, Word Up magazine was more of a cleaner rap publication. So they didn't put the Easy E's and the Cool G raps in Word Up. Salt and Pepper and Heavy D were in Word Up magazine. So that's what I mean about how the honesty and the connectivity of it is so real, even the way he starts off. And then he goes, see, that's the clean side of it. But then he goes to the more grimy hip hop side of it. Every Saturday, Rap Attack, Mr. Magic, Marley Marl. Okay, Marley Marl at the time, when Biggie's making Juicy, is considered by most to be the greatest hip hop producer of all time. There used to be this thing called the Rap Attack. We just put a flyer up of an old Rap Attack on According to Hip Hop that you saw. That post, that's what Biggie's talking about. So it's a piece of New York in like not hardcore in the sense of hardcore music, but it's a hardcore piece in terms of like sedimentaries of hip hop history. And so he's going through what he grew up on in 80s hip hop. Well, if you're familiar with 80s hip hop, you're immediately connecting to this because also this is from a song that was made by an R&B group in 1983. So it's got a lot of 80s themes. Okay, so he's a 70s baby. So he's connecting to his audience and his age group. It's taken from, the loop is taken from Juicy Fruit by Entume. That was released in 1983. He's talking about the rappers that he came up looking up to in 85, 86, 87, 88. So there's a nostalgic feel immediately just because of the beat and because of how he starts off the song.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so let's give it some more contextualization. Is that even the hook, you know very well who you are, that comes from the
Right.
Juicy Group song, but a lot of people don't know that's the group Total singing.
Okay.
He's going to help blow them up later that year with Can't You See? And so
Okay.
so Puff is putting the team together right now too. It's kind of like the sneaky thing about Juicy that people don't realize. This is the bad boy formula that's about to win and win big, on top of it being a piece of hip hop history. Because this was the thing that showed Puff where the 80s sample works for this era, because that's the music we grew up on that all the people my age and Big's age love. All right. The girl singing the hook, oh, it works. So he's got a girl group. This is 1993, 94. Nobody knows yet because they don't come out until the New Jersey soundtrack, the summer of 95 with Can't You See, which is featuring Biggie. But this is how long that group was around, because that's them re-singing the hook.
Okay. I didn't know that.
That's just a little piece of history, just and even the components of who's singing on the song.
Okay. Like this is one of the only hip hop songs that I know that has a melodic, like sung hook, that's not the part that everybody quotes or sings of this song. Like I can sing it, but like that's not the famous part of this song.
No, he's the famous parts. That's what's crazy about this is a classic R&B record, and he actually took a classic R&B record and made it more famous. That's how great and like impactful he can be. And so I really love the way the second verse starts off.
That's my favorite in the whole song.
Oh, yeah. Because this is what I mean about the honesty. I went from a change to a common thief, to up close and personal with Robin Leach. And I'm far from cheap. I smoke skunk with my peeps all day. Spread love, it's the Brooklyn way. Like he's the same guy.
Yep.
You know,
there's a lot of that in that song too, where
there's a lot of that.
Call the crib, same number, same hood. I mean, that's the same idea too.
Yes.
Like I'm still the same.
So
though I'm up close and personal with Robin Leach, who's for those of you who don't know who that is, that's Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. Yeah.
Champagne wishes and caviar dreams. So he goes back to the original ideas from the intro. Lunches, brunches, interviews by the pool. Considered a fool because what?
I dropped out of high school.
A high school. And then what does he say? This is the intelligent Biggie that we actually never really got to see on record that much, because he says it very briefly. Stereotypes of a black male misunderstood.
Yep.
And it's still all good.
Yep.
And so those are the types of things that we would expect a Chuck B, a Nas, a KRS-One to say.
Yeah.
Biggie's masterful at sneaking things into records like no MC ever. It's like it's that little gem of knowledge right there. It's like boom, and he's out with it, because Biggie was always more of a party starter and make you feel good type of guy.
Okay.
You know, he's the best blend of like, nobody does the charismatic hit record and the evil genius record to the level that Big does. He does them both at a level that very few people have ever touched. As far as the combination of both of those things, he's that guy. Another hip hop history fact that I kind of want to cover, if I can, right quick.
Yeah, for sure.
Is that part of the legend of Juicy is also the B-side. And so this is part of where the making the hit record to go with the street record becomes a big thing. The B-side to Juicy is this record called Unbelievable, produced by DJ Premier.
Okay.
DJ Premier is obviously one half of the legendary group Gang Starr, and is fresh off of producing 3 tracks off Nas's Illmatic.
Okay.
Unbelievable is his one contribution to Ready to Die. It's the B-side, the Juicy. And so you're hearing like super happy and positive Biggie on the A-side when you get the tape, but then you get street Biggie on Unbelievable on the B-side. So Puff did a brilliant, like masterful, like marketing job.
He's an excellent marketer. Like he's one of the best. Yeah.
As far as hip hop goes, if you really look at the history of hip hop, I know there might be people that have been better, like actual businessmen in terms of what the artist may think, and even may have made more money. But in terms of that marketing aspect and understanding that, nobody's been better. Nobody's been better than him in hip hop at that. And this is the start of that too, pairing Juicy and Unbelievable, because as much as I love Juicy, well, for most hip hop heads, Unbelievable might be the best track on Ready to Die. Nobody talks about Juicy in hip hop circles. How about this? In hip hop circles, Juicy is talked about like one of the best rap songs of all time, like for public consumption,
Right.
but not maybe one of the 5 best songs on Ready to Die. Unbelievable is considered to be one of those songs.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So you're seeing his full brilliance literally on his first single in the B-side too. You're like, man, this dude can make a hit record. Be honest with you, he can do that super gangster grind. It's like, oh, this guy's a star. It's about to run rap.
It's hard to do. It's hard to do both, man. Like,
yeah.
it's hard to.
Yeah. No, it's almost impossible, especially in rap, to do it at the level that he did it, to make something like Juicy that like literally, I mean, Juicy is one of those records that you can play in countries where they don't speak English and they know the words.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
If you don't know, not like everybody can quote those things, right? Like,
right. I mean, think about this. How many people say, if you don't know,
now you know.
Now you know. How many people, like I can remember on Martin, it was baby, baby, baby all the time.
Yeah. No, and we will do at some point an episode about the classic hip hop references in Hamilton too, like that are quoted or used. But that's one of them that is used. If you don't know, now you know. He doesn't finish it the way that Biggie does, but in Hamilton. But yeah, that's one of those things. And I've had to explain. There are a lot of. I mean, Hamilton is kind of like a pop culture sensation, obviously, and it has brought a lot of white people appreciate that in a way they don't appreciate classic hip hop. So I've had to do some like explaining this is where this comes from kind of thing. I mean, and Lin-Manuel Miranda, who wrote Hamilton, is from Washington Heights, and so he grew up there, and he's the same. Well, he's like a couple of years older than us, so he's not Biggie's age, but he would be like in between that age and us. So he's growing up with all of these references.
He caught a lot of that.
Yeah. And I mean, there's another Hamilton song called the 10 Dual Commandments, which is obviously a reference to the 10 Crack Commandments. I mean, and I'm sure I want to do Hamilton with you because I know there's a lot of stuff in there that I'm not catching, but all that to say that this is if you don't know, doubt now you know is one of those.
Well, also too, to reference that, that would make the writer of Hamilton, that puts him in high school when all of this is coming out.
Right.
So if this is all super impactful to him, that would put
exactly.
Juicy comes out in high school, 10 Crack Commandments is coming out as he's graduating or going to college. So that's like the time where, you know what I mean?
That's a very impressionable time.
It's the impressionable time. It's your formative youth.
Yeah, and there's so many like New York, because he obviously he was living in New York, so he grew up there. He is like the musical In the Heights is about Washington Heights, like so.
Yeah. He saw a lot coming up in that area. So I think you've already explained how Biggie's consistent with the theme on here as a writer. Okay, like the song wins on every level. He's consistent with the theme. He's touching on the negative aspects of his life. He's touching on the positive interactions that he's having. He's touching on the stereotypes of Black men on this plenty of times. Like when he starts off, I'm more than a drug dealer. I'm just trying to feed my daughter. Stereotypes of a Black male misunderstood. He's connecting those dots. So he's proven himself to be a wonderful and consistent writer on his first single too, is I think what people miss. Because the record feels so good, you actually forget how well is he connecting all these dots. How like he's literally covering all the bases. It's lyrically sharp. It's a great storyline. It's a good beat. It makes you feel good. It makes you think for a moment. It makes you happy for him. It's really like an all-encompassing song. And this is his first single. And so what you're looking at is the start to like one of the truly brilliant rap minds and rap careers ever. And it's time dated too, so that you know who he is and where he is. Time to get paid. Blow up like the World Trade. So that's what World Trade's what?
That was 93.
Yeah, that's like February, March 93.
And for those of you who don't know, the World Trade Center was like there was a bomb in the basement or whatever. This is not the planes on 9/11. This is like in 1993. There was
this is in the 90s. The World Trade Center was somebody ran into the basement level or the bottom floor and set off like 3 or 4 bombs, correct?
Yeah.
Correct. So when he's making a reference, this is 1994. Well, we're only a year removed from the World Trade Center being bombed. So it's like, well, that puts you in the frame of mind. The way he starts off the third verse, which I'm sure you're familiar with as well.
Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis.
When I was dead broke, man, I didn't picture this because those things cost $300 even back then.
Yep.
But think about it costs damn near that now. I mean, I know it's more now, but think about it's 1992, 93, a Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis will cost you. You could get like the Super Nintendo with one controller and the game that came with it for like $199 if it was on sale. Mm-hmm. So when he's starting off that, he's connecting to all the people in the Black community, because this is really what he's talking about. He's talking about Christmas time and not being able to gifts for your family, and he keeps the theme consistent. When I was dead broke, man, I couldn't picture this 50-inch, what do you say, 50-inch screen,
50-inch screen, money green leather sofa,
Got to ride phone bill about 2 G's flat. No need to worry, my account handles that. You know. Mm-hmm. And so he's bringing up the positive side of what's happening in his life, but then he doesn't forget where he come from. You know, no heat. Wonder why Christmas missed us. Birthdays was the worst days. Now we ship champagne when we thirsty. That's the best line of the song to me. Yeah. Birthdays was the worst days. Now we ship champagne.
The poetry in that line is exceptional.
It is. It's brilliant. He. That's what I mean. Is it lost in the nostalgic and the good feel of this is the brilliant writer that you're hearing. Mm-hmm. He's brilliant.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
And so what you're seeing is that, and this is what I'm about to say. Of all the gifts that he has as an MC, you're actually seeing his best gift in that line, and that's why I love that line, because he keeps using that contextualization skill. Biggie, more than anybody else, could contextualize things from the opposite ends of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
2 bars. He does it on one of his last verses that he ever recorded before he died, called Victory. It's one of my favorite lines that he ever had off the No Way Out album, Puff Daddy and the Family album. Mm-hmm. Well, the same way he did the whole birthdays was the worst days. Now we ship champagne when we thirsty. Like, nobody was able to do it that seamlessly, contextualize those 2 feelings. He did that at the end too. That's what I mean. His real gift is his ability to do that all the time and make you laugh, make you think. He used to, on Victory, he goes, used to call me Fatso. Now you call me Castro. That was his thing. He could contextualize both sides of things so quickly, you know?
That's very fast, yeah.
That's very fast. And so when you're seeing him do it on Juicy, it's like, no. That was kind of like, you know how ball players got a go-to move? Mm-hmm. That was Biggie's go-to move, actually, because nobody could do that as beautifully as him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the writer thing to it, it's talking about it like as a creative writer or just as a writer, he doesn't speak in generalizations in a way that a lot of musicians do. He has a skill for concrete details, like very super specific details that are so evocative that, like, it's not just the detail, but it's all of the things that it brings with it too.
Yes.
I mean, money green leather sofa is one. Eating sardines for dinner is one of those that like jumps to me, because that's not just a like, it has the feeling of like, I went through the cabinet and this is all there was. Like, that's kind of the idea, but also has a smell that comes with it. It also has a taste that comes with it. It also has the implication that most people think they're kind of disgusting. Like, it's that it has all of those things in one bar.
And he's the best at that.
That's hard to do.
And he's the best at that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Here's another example of how great when he does it on the Get Money remix. He goes, guns, I bust them. Problems with my wife, don't discuss them. Coupes and Lear jets, I lust them. Fingerprints, I dust them.
That's everything.
It's everything.
Yeah.
It's like, you want to know who he is? Guns, I bust them. Problems with my discuss them. Coupes and Lear jets, I lust them. Fingerprints, I dust them. We're done here. There's you know, and so nobody was able to compact it like that. Juicy is really the start of that. And he just gets exceedingly better at it on every song. And it's just beautiful. And a beautiful moment.
And he was so young. Like, he was what, 22 when he did this song, right? 21, 22.
And keep in mind, he had only been rapping like regularly, like hard at it for like 3 or so years, like taking it seriously. So like, people have to understand, the time that he took seriously to get to Ready to Die was about the time it took for him to make Life After Death. So we're talking about like, in about a 5 or 6 year period, he went from like an above average rapper to somebody who you could say was the best rapper that ever lived. Right. In about 5 years. Yeah.
So, I mean, there was there was work at it and there was natural talent too. I mean, and
Yeah.
that's another one of those things. Like
Very Michael
he
Jordan.
hit at the same hit at the right time. He was living in the right place. He had the natural talent. He also had the work ethic. He had all of those things that all kind of
Very Michael
married
Jordan.
together all at once.
Yes, very Michael Jordan. Like, it's like people forget. It's like, no, Michael Jordan is one of the most talented basketball players ever, too. He just happens to be. It's like when the most talented player is the most hardest working player and has all the intangibles. It's like, well, just like you can't teach Mike's 48-inch vertical, well, you can't teach that voice and that delivery.
No, that voice is one of the most iconic voices in any music ever.
Yes,
like
that's what I mean.
I don't want to make him like Freddie Mercury, because it doesn't sound like Freddie Mercury at all. But it's like one of those voices that is like one of the. It is.
It's in a special.
It is a weapon and an instrument, both.
No, it's like this. It's like, there's there's that hallway, like in the Hall of Fame, that like Barry Sanders and Jim Brown and Tom Brady and Joe Montana are in.
Like the top of the top of the top.
Right. Well, voices go the same way. So it's like, no, Freddie Mercury and Biggie are in that hallway where it's like, no, ever, period. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's different hallways to it. No, he's in that hallway. Like, and I don't think there are a lot of rappers in that hallway like him, Chuck D, Method Man, and Tupac are the people that come to mind.
Yeah. I have a question. This song is from his first album,
Ready to Die.
Yeah. And he says it's his first single too, right?
Yeah. It's the first single.
But it's also narrated. The song is narrated from the perspective of somebody who's already made it. Like, so how exactly is he like speaking it into existence? Is he like manifesting it, or has he already like made some money before that?
That's a great question, actually. Some manifestation has already taken place because Biggie's been rolling with Puff for a couple of years when Ready to Die. The first recording sessions for Ready to Die started late 1992, I believe, or early 93. So this is summer of 94. So it's been about 20 to 24 months with Puff already. He's done the Dolly My Baby remix with Supercat, the What's the One 411 remix with Mary J. Blige. He's been rolling around with Tupac.
I was about to say, I thought they were friends, like early in this.
Yeah, before Ready to Die is when they're friends. So he's rolling around with Nas back then too a little bit. All these guys kind of, you know what I mean? I don't think Tupac and Nas really knew each other, but Puff was trying to sign Nas to Bad Boy too. Before Craig Mack. Like Puff wanted it to be Biggie and Nas. So it's like, you hear Nas reference that.
So he's got good taste anyway.
He's got excellent taste. He's got the best. I told you this guy's a genius. It's like, he hears Biggie, he hears Nas. He's like, I want to sign these two guys. Well, duh. Right. So some of the comeuppance and notoriety has already happened. Party and Bullshit off the Who's the Man soundtrack has come out. So he's made some money and got some buzz. He's not rich.
Okay.
But he's made some money. He's not bad off. He's done Who's the Man. I think Who Shot You may have been recorded by then too. So he's made records that he's getting some notoriety for by the time Juicy's coming out. Like, we know who Big is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's not like impoverished and making this song and like speaking things into existence. He is not living that way, sort of. He's not like as wealthy as he would be, obviously, but like he is moving in that direction. How about this?
He's getting made, things are happening fast.
Yeah.
When Juicy's getting made, things are literally changing fast. You know what I'm saying? Like Puff is pulling up in the projects, like in the Range Rover, and taking it to the studio. You know what I mean? Shit's changing.
That makes sense. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So this is like, Juicy is actually during the comeuppance.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So this is like the celebration of this new life. And going from negative to positive, right?
Yeah.
Like
the deal signed. He's been making records.
One of the connections here too is that Live Forever is a celebratory record too, and it's coming after the peak grunge, navel gazing, depressive. I'm an anti-rock star. I don't really want to be a rock star. I like the money, but like not the. I don't like the fame. I don't like this. I want you all to leave me alone. I mean, that's the Kurt Cobain and Billy Corgan and all of that stuff.
Right.
But Oasis is the first rock band that you would consider, and they're not really grunge. They're more Beatles spinoff, like a modern version of that, but like the style of music with more layers and more electric guitars. But they were one of the first bands in like that generation to say, no, I want to be a star. Like I want to be like I want everybody looking at me. I mean, that's what the song Rock and Roll Star is about.
I like fame.
Yeah, and it's a good thing.
Mhm.
It comes with cocaine, as we will talk about in a minute. All right, there's a couple things that I went back to my notes right quick while I was waiting for this to reset. Um, that I wanted to point out too. I did say like that the first lines of all the verses are super iconic. But they're all like different cadences too. Like it's the same beat, but the flow is different on all three. Like in most rock and roll songs or whatever, you have the same when you have the same chord progression, you sing basically the same rhythm in the lines or whatever, like
Yeah.
the same where the words fall or the guitars change or whatever, guitar chords change. You keep them basically the same. But all three of those, I mean, it's the same beat, but it was all a dream. Used to read Word Up magazine, and then made the change from Common Thief to Up Close and Personal with Robin Leach, and then Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis. All three of them are different. Like the cadence of the flow is different too.
So what you're hearing on his first single, that's what I mean about a lot of the brilliance goes unstated. So I was talking about how the writing part's unstated.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's go to the fact part of what is stated. Well, immediately what you hear is somebody who already has one of the best flows and cadences you have ever heard on record
It's
on one
nuts.
song. It's nuts. Okay.
Yeah.
I always tell people, and there's a reason that there's a picture of him behind me. Okay.
Yep.
The
There's a
reason
picture of him in my classroom too, actually.
there's a picture of him behind me
Mm-hmm.
because he's the master of the flow and cadence.
Mm-hmm.
Above any rapper who ever lived. And the only person I think flow and cadence wise is close to him is Method Man, who coincidentally enough is the only guest appearance on Ready to Die is Method Man on the what? It's the only guest appearance on Ready to Die is Method Man and Biggie. If you're a hip hop fan, I think that you are and you have not heard that record, it is truly one of the beautiful moments in hip hop history, definitely vocally. Hearing Biggie and Method Man vocally together is a beautiful thing. It never gets old. But everything that you're talking about, well, nobody had really done it to that level before. I could show you MCs where they had done it, but there was something about this that felt intentional approach-wise to change it up.
Yeah.
And so you
It
go
definitely
back
feels like he did it on purpose, for sure.
and you go back and you hear things about how, well, he used to listen to country music and study the melodies of like pop music and blues singers and Willie Nelson.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you're hearing is somebody, and listen to what I'm about to say, because like we're talking about his comeuppance, right?
Right.
Okay, the guy lyrically who died in 1997, he does not exist but in brief moments and stretches in 1993 and 94 and 92, okay? There's flashes, but the lyricist isn't there yet. The lyricist is not where the flow and the cadence is.
Okay.
Biggie's comeuppance is coming around guys like Raekwon, Method Man, Nas, Tretch from Naughty by Nature. These are guys who are considered to be more lyrically sharp and precise than because they were.
Mm-hmm.
So he made the flow and the cadence his thing. He couldn't be like in 1993, 94, nobody thinks that he's the lyricist that Nas is, or even that Method Man is, or that Tretch is. Not lyrically speaking, but that flow, that cadence, it put him right there. It put him in the conversation because it was so beautiful. He was doing something with it. And it's almost like, well, that's his flow and his cadence is the prime example of somebody taking their gift that they're already brilliant at and working on it and maximizing. You know, like he wasn't concerned with being the best lyricist. I don't think he felt like, because of Nas specifically, I don't think he felt like that was attainable. But he knew what his voice and what his delivery was like, and he worked on it. And it just got better and better and better and better. So what you are hearing is the early stages of him switching it up. He's trying stuff. I tell people, Ready to Die is the greatest hip hop experimental classic album ever, because Ready to Die is getting made in a time where hip hop doesn't know where it's going. And Ready to Die helped give it some of its focus for the next 4 to 5 years. Actually.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Like what hip hop sounds like in 92, 93, like is when Ready to Die is getting recorded. Well, stuff is kind of everywhere. Tribe is on their third album. De La's on their third album. Wu-Tang Clan's popping up. You're hearing Nas pop up. Naughty by Nature and all those things. The kind of Public Enemy, NWA thing is dying down. Snoop and Dre have just hit it big. You know, that's all new. And so hip hop's going in a lot of directions, in particular East Coast hip hop. Ready to Die helped navigate those waters. This record helped navigate those waters.
Okay.
His flow and his cadence helped change everything for him as an artist because it put him with his peers, you know, to the point that he was considered to be an upper echelon lyricist, but it was really more the flow and the cadence early on. So, oh, and just one quick thing before we jump to Oasis. Sometimes being celebratory is in the nature of the human being, and you can hear it on record. There's a pure joy to Biggie. He's able to make celebratory records because he really was kind of a celebratory person. When you hear him spread love, it's the Brooklyn way. You can tell he feels
believe it.
that. You believe it because he believes it. And here's some proof the life of that. This guy was making dubs of Ready to Die for people in his neighborhood in Brooklyn out of his apartment when it got done. Think about it. You're getting paid off of record sales, but he loves his neighborhood so much. When we talk about spread love, it's the Brooklyn way is real. He was making dubs of Ready to Die in the neighborhood for people.
Yeah.
That's spread love. It's the Brooklyn way. One of the greatest rap albums of all time is sitting around on dub tapes in Brooklyn.
Yeah, those things have got to be worth millions of dollars now. Like if they
anybody that has those tapes, I forgot who it was, the way the story goes, but somebody like had to run up in there because this is what I mean about how this is all during the comeuppance. Big doesn't even understand how big of a star he already even was. Like somebody had to run up in the crib and tell him like, "Yo, stop doing shit. Like you're about to be the biggest rapper like whoever." Do you cut that out? Yeah.
So. Some of that's spreading love, and some of that's like you get the feel that he's so proud of it. Like he loves what he's made, and he just wants to share it with people. And I don't want to wait on this fucking record company.
He's not used to that. He's a street dude. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna wait for the record company for people in my neighborhood to hear my music. Imagine how that sounds to a guy that's growing up in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn. It's like you're telling me that my block can't hear my record until the record company where's the record company at? Where y'all in Manhattan? We in Brooklyn right now. We on the block. I'm dubbing the tape.
Yeah. And it puts speaker out the window. Y'all can hear it.
Yeah, Radio Raheem style, all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now let's jump over the pond.
This is Oasis is just such a fascinating group. They had more than 2 albums, but only, as far as I'm concerned, only 2 good ones. Like the others are like very, which is a Biggie thing too, right? He only had 2. So they recorded other albums later, but they were very like hit or miss kind of retread of what they made before. The first 2 albums, Definitely Maybe and What's the Story, Morning Glory, are pretty perfect rock and roll albums. Like they're I mean, we're talking about Live Forever, the song, which is from the first record, but both of those albums to me are ones that I listen to over and over and over and over and over. They're just fun. They're joyful. Many of the songs we've talked about from my side, like especially that come from the 90s, the Nirvana songs, Smashing Pumpkins songs, those kinds of things are pretty dark. And these songs are not at all. They are, I mean, even the ones that are talking about drugs and partying and stuff like that, are done in a celebratory sense, not a I'm going to die sense. The actual story, the actual song Morning Glory, from What's the Story, Morning Glory, it starts, all your dreams are made when you're chained to the mirror and the razor blade. Today's the day that all the world can see. Like there's some pretty explicit like drug references in there. They have a song on the first record called Cigarettes and Alcohol. That is, I mean, so they are embracing that, what you think of as a rock and roll lifestyle, in a way that many of the other 90s artists don't.
Kind of like Biggie with 10 Crack Commandments. It's like, no, they're actually making it kind of like fun and celebratory still.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
No, I when you said that, I thought 2 things when you were just doing that brief rundown, and then I immediately thought about Biggie and how that's what I mean about the evil genius. Like Crack Commandments is the epitome of evil genius. You know what I mean? It's like when he's talking about his former trade as a drug dealer, but he's making it really funny and entertaining and thoughtful, intricate as a writer. And so I can see that connection between them 2 again. I thought of something. You know, I know earlier on you were talking about how they were kind of like a group that wasn't anti-fame.
Right.
It was like, I want fame.
Yep, absolutely.
Now that you've said that, And now that you're also saying where their first two albums, where they acquired most of their money and their fame, were their only two good records, did fame get to them?
Oh yeah,
Because,
without question.
Okay. Because that usually musically, if you're telling me they made 3 more albums after the 2 albums that they acquired
At
the money,
least there may be others too. I don't remember exactly, but I mean,
okay.
there's definitely several others.
Well, I mean, that's the dangerous thing about fame is actually what I was thinking about and how
Yeah.
can affect you even
The
musically.
other part of this that is well known, at least in rock and roll, whatever, is that the lead singer and the lead guitarist, the songwriters, are brothers. And Liam and Noel Gallagher. Noel's the older brother. He's the guitarist. He's the serious one. He's the voice you hear on Don't Look Back in Anger, for example. He sings on some of the songs, and he's usually singing harmony for most of them. But the main voice, like in Live Forever and most of their famous songs, is Liam. Noel Noel is the older serious musician kind of guy. He's kind of snotty, like he's kind of holier than thou a little bit. Liam is the shitheaded little brother. Like he is the Noel tells a story like when they had to share, they were Manchester working class family. So they had shared a bedroom when they were growing up, and Noel's 5 years, I think, 5 years older. So he like bought this like new like stereo system or whatever, not like a big one, but like what he could afford. And he would have been 17 or 18 or whatever, and maybe not a little older. But Liam came in the room after getting like piss drunk one night and like peed on the stereo system and ruined it, because he was too drunk to get up and find the bathroom. Like is that, and there's the stories like that follow them all the way through, and they still, like, now today, hate each other's guts. They won't play with each other. They won't they can't be in the same room with each other. They're the other iconic story, I mean, they have lots of canceled concerts too, because like one of them wouldn't show up or whatever.
Wow, I didn't know any of it.
Oh yeah, the most famous of the stories probably is the MTV Unplugged one. There's another MTV Unplugged story. They were supposed to play MTV Unplugged, and Liam didn't show up. So Noel goes on the stage, and he's playing Wonderwall, and he's playing all the songs that Liam sings. And then Liam does show up later in the show, and he's like sitting in the balcony heckling him as he's playing the songs. It's the show is really good. It's painful to watch though. They really like actively don't like each other though. And when they say, like, they ask both of them in interviews, because they both have solo careers now. They ask both of them, are you ever going to get Oasis back together? And they both say basically, it's up to Noel, it's up to Liam, like it's up to the other one to apologize for what they've done.
So that's a no.
What's a no? Yes. Yeah.
That's all interesting. I would have never even. So they're they're actually like living this fame and rock star lifestyle that they wanted to acquire, and then they acquired it, and it appears to have torn their family apart too.
Yeah. Yeah,
so
and they didn't really super. I mean, like I told you the original story, like they didn't like super like each other to start with, like,
right.
But obviously the
worked.
fame and cocaine and drinking and everything else kind of tore on at that fabric for sure.
Yeah, it just magnifies those issues.
Yep,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So to this record, which one of them is the songwriter? Or the main songwriter?
Usually Noel is the songwriter.
So he's the serious one, but he's writing the celebratory music. So maybe that's his way of channeling. Maybe that's why he is so serious. He's channeling through the music.
And he still had drinking and drug problems too. I'm not saying that like he's like this angel child, like but he is certainly the more serious of the musicians for sure.
Okay. So he's not a Boy Scout by any means either. No. You're just saying he's more serious one. He's just Big Brother then, is what you're saying.
Exactly. That's what he is.
Okay. So did he write this? Did they co-write together?
I'm pretty sure Noel wrote. I can look it up, but
I mean, did he write like their material?
He wrote most of them for sure.
Okay. So kind of who did we just cover? From Queens. God. Simon and Garfunkel.
Paul Simon, yeah.
Is this kind of like a Simon and Garfunkel type of situation?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, they're friend. They were friends, and obviously Noel and Liam are brothers. But um,
I mean, musically.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess it works kind of like that because one of them's the excellent songwriter, and one of them has the iconic voice, right? I
Right.
mean,
Right.
let me see if this says, yeah, Noel Gallagher wrote "Live Forever."
Okay. So Big Brother might, be feeling like, well, little brother sounds great, but whose words are he singing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Man, fuck that guy.
Yeah.
I can totally see that. You
Yeah.
know, do you have a younger sibling? Do you have a younger brother?
I have a younger brother, yeah, but he has Down syndrome, so it was a different, and which, and I love my brother obviously, but it's a different kind of relationship, right? Than it would
Yeah.
be. It is not competitive in the same way that most brothers would be. But that said, we still did like wrestle and like beat the crap out of
Yeah.
each other. Like I mean, we're still brothers, right?
Yeah,
Like it's
right.
that part doesn't go away just
Go away.
because
Yep.
because of other things. But yeah, but yes, there's definitely competition between them.
Okay.
I've actually made a playlist. I mean, I might make it and like link it down here again. Of Liam Gallagher has, I forget what his band is called. Now he has a band, and Noel Gallagher's band's called the High Flying Birds. And like if you take, they've really both released a couple solo projects like after Oasis broke up.
Mhm.
And if you take like the best 4 or 5 songs from each of those albums, that would be, if you and put those together, that would be an incredible Oasis album. But they can't stand to be in the same room with each other. So yeah.
So that happens.
Yeah.
But what happens when they can't stay in the room together? Songs like "Live Forever."
Yeah, man, it's an incredible, and the lyrics are super simple too.
It is. So I was gonna say it's remarkably simple but beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. The, much of the narrative about them when they were younger, at this age, was that they were ripping off the Beatles. Like there are a lot of songs that sound very Beatle-ish, and they're using similar harmonies, similar chord progressions, and that kind of thing. Obviously, the guitars are a little fuzzier and 90s are than the Beatles are, but
Now, where are the Beatles from exactly?
Liverpool, which is another working class town.
And Manchester is how far from Liverpool? About what?
Not very at all.
Yeah, it's like 30, 45 minutes if memory serves.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's
so
both,
yeah, so okay,
they're both like steel town, industrial, like.
Well,
Sure.
Okay, so I thought I was being lazy because the only musical influence and inspiration I could hear from listening to this song and some of the other stuff, I was like, it's very Beatles-ish.
It is,
And, but I was like, is that me being lazy? Because
no, that's not you being lazy. They're doing it absolutely 100% on purpose.
Okay, because
Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. I was afraid to say it. That's why I was asking you those things because I didn't want the black guy to look like he's being lazy by saying the UK sounds like the Beatles.
I mean, honestly,
because it feels melody wise, melody wise, especially with the guitar riffs that I've heard from some of the songs I've listened to. It feels very, very Beatles-ish.
Yeah, and they're doing it absolutely 100% on purpose.
Okay,
like,
I'm not lost.
They're like, if you're going to copy somebody, you might as well copy the greatest, right? Like,
no, I mean, especially if they're from like 30 minutes from where you're from.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. Okay, so in hip hop relationship to that, somebody I reference often, like people used to say that Nas sounded like Tragedy Gaddafi in Cool G Rap. Well, Tragedy was like 2 blocks from Nas's neighborhood. Cool G Rap was from Corona, Queens, about 15 minutes up the street.
Yeah.
It's like they were respectively like 3 and 5 years older than him. Who would you think he was going to sound?
Of course, like? Yeah. Like the people that live close to him that sound like, yeah, sure, of course.
Right. And so this is like I look at that more of an imitation form of flattery type of thing. And also too, I mean, nobody can be the Beatles. So it's like, It has to be just that in order for you to respect it and accept it. Now, what I would say, because I got hip to them because they were really doing big numbers around this time. Did the Beatles' influence affect those numbers? Because they were really, really big numbers wise.
Yeah. This would have been about the same time that the Beatles were releasing the what are they called? Like the Beatles anthology albums too. Would have been about this time too. But Oasis was the biggest band in the world. Like by a lot at this point. And their competition was, I have to look up where Blur was from. Have you heard of Blur, like the band Blur?
Not
You
offhand,
definitely would know
no.
some of their songs for sure, but like
I'm about to say I probably know more songs by bands than I even know bands. You
um
know what I mean?
the so Blur is 1980. It was is London, but the song too is their most famous song, the Woohoo song. When I feel like he's at home, woohoo. Okay, that
Yeah,
is that's
yeah,
Blur. They
yeah.
have the other place you would know, let me make sure yeah, Damon Albarn from is he's the voice, the non-hip hop voice in the Gorillas too, like Clint Eastwood and Feel Good. That
Mm-hmm.
is him as well. But they were like the competition, the two bands that kind of were feuding with each other or whatever before they turned on themselves. Um, at that point too. This is they were Oasis was like the first line of what they call the second British invasion, um, which is another Beatles thing too. In fact,
Yeah. No. That's what I mean. It's like they kind of followed the formula too.
mm-hmm.
It seems like it's like hit it big, jump over the pond, hit it bigger,
Mm-hmm.
come back and tour.
Yeah,
And look, Liverpool to Manchester, yes, 32.9 miles between
yeah.
the
I was supposed
two.
to say I didn't think they were very far apart.
It's not. So
I
they
know
say,
like premier like soccer wise, like Liverpool and
yeah,
Manchester
Liverpool,
United
yeah,
like hate
yeah.
each other too. Like it's
Right,
just
right. They got one of the biggest, worldwide sports rivalries. But yeah, they're saying it's a 37-minute drive with normal traffic. So
yeah.
it's like they're just being
So less
inspired
than
by
an
what,
hour. Yeah.
yeah, less than an hour. So they're being inspired by what they're around more or less,
Yeah.
which is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I kind of like thought the highlight of this song was actually the ending of it. I thought it had some like very like Tom Petty, Bruce Springsteen type like stadium guitar ish ending.
Yeah.
I feel like the ending of that song really kind of carries it to a level of it being one of those like iconic stadium songs
It's an
that
anthem
crosses
song, sure.
over. It's an anthem song. So who are the guitar players? Like Noel's a
Um,
guitar player too, but
no, Noel Gallagher is the
there's an
like
acoustic and an electric being played
mm-hmm.
at the end.
um they would have layered like dozens of them on like a soundboard, but
Mm-hmm.
even in the band, I mean, it's hard to say who the guitarists
Okay.
were, because I don't know, but like
The brothers are the core is what you're saying.
the brothers are the core, and they didn't rotate musicians, but um they would have had beyond Noel usually two other guitarists playing as well. It was a larger group. Um the other musicians, the drummer, the bass player, like they all rotated, especially after Morning Glory, because you think it's a pain in the butt being, in a band with a brother that you hate. Try being like one of the other musicians, watching the two of them bitch at
Two
each other all the
brothers,
time.
right?
And I think eventually a lot of them said, I don't want to deal with this shit anymore.
So it's kind of funny. What I'm hearing is that the brothers' rivalry,
mm-hmm.
is probably tore this band apart pretty
Yeah.
much.
Oh, without question.
They didn't want to work with each other, but other people didn't want to work with them.
Mm-hmm.
There's drugs and there's alcohol. So like, it's kind of funny.
It's a rock and roll story, right?
Right, it is. And we kind of castigate some of those like anti-fame rock stars
Mm-hmm.
from our era, the 90s. But it's like, well, they made better music than these guys, though, now, didn't they? For longer, too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so there's just
is Pearl Jam still playing together? Yes, they are.
Yeah, that's an excellent way of putting it, Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. Pearl Jam is still playing together.
Mm-hmm. And it's a lot of the same guys too. We'll get to Pearl Jam in a different episode. I don't know which one we're going to talk about because I love Pearl Jam too. But they have their drummer actually was. I mean, their drummer. They've been through like 3 or 4 different drummers. That's the one position they couldn't keep somebody. The drummer that plays with them now is Matt Cameron, who originally played with Soundgarden before Soundgarden broke up.
Okay.
But again, we're not going to get into Pearl Jam now, but they are a good counterpoint to Oasis. I think, as in that they were also one of the biggest bands in the world, and also still play huge sold out stadium shows.
Mm-hmm.
And all seem to mostly like each other. Their lead singer seems to be a genuinely nice and kind and human being that pretty much everybody likes. The Gallagher brothers are prickly to
Right.
both each other and to other people too. There's, if you look, you can look on YouTube and find dozens of interviews with them kind of sparring with interviewers too.
Oh, they're one of those. They're testy, huh?
Oh yeah, they're very testy, and they still are. Like and they're very sensitive about each other too. Like when they're very like it's the other person's fault still, and they're older than us. They're like not 50 probably yet, but like
But
they're
approaching.
yeah.
The older
So
one's probably 50 now, actually. Or
actually, they
approaching.
probably both are by now, but barely.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, like,
I think it's just interesting when you juxtapose it to who the person we're comparing it to, who is somebody who was like notoriously loved by almost everybody that he was around.
Yeah.
It was like a big
this
party.
is not a similarity between the two of them.
No. This is not similarity. Style of music similarity, check. Lifestyle habits, X.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, this was a guy that people gravitated towards and wanted to be around more. You know,
Yeah.
so when it's it's just funny what fame does to people too. You know, like Big's fame actually drew people closer and closer to him. It looks like their fame drove people away, including them from each other. But you're saying that was already teetering anyway.
The musicians drove them apart. Like people love Oasis. Like to hear them play and to hear their songs. I mean, they're anthemic, like you said. Like you heard the guitars at the end of Live Forever. I mean, it's music that draws you in, and it is very melodic and is very sing along. It is not hard to sing. It's not like Freddie Mercury singing, right? I mean, it's music that is sing alongable on purpose too. I want to reemphasize this too. It is music also that is, I mean, the song literally is about it, but it is about embracing life and embracing the joy of music and the joy of it's a celebratory. This was released, I mean, definitely maybe was released like 4 or 5 months after Kurt Cobain died. Too, not on purpose, I don't think. It's just so it's one of those things. And it was a moment like where, not that it stopped being cool to mumble and to stare at your navel and say, I don't deserve this, and blah, 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 blah. This was, I mean, Liam Gallagher is one of the most distinctive lead singers. Like his position, I'm not going to stand up and do it because then you can see my pajama pants, but like he sings like a peacock. Like he like leans forward with his hands behind his back to his microphone, and he's just singing like that. He'll occasionally play tambourine too, but I mean, you see most front men like jumping and running around and like leaning back and forth and that, and he's basically standing still, wearing these like ridiculous sunglasses and like fluffy coats and all kinds of bright colored stuff. It is very peacockish.
Mm-hmm. Very, very showmanshipy. Look at me now type of watch me spread my.
It's very rock star, like your classic rock star story kind of stuff. They're inviting that attention in a way that very few other 90s bands did.
So do you think that they were probably for the United States, because now when you're putting that together time-wise, it's like, well, that's probably why they popped so big in the States, because this type of rock and roll was not being made in the States.
Not at all.
Not from 92 to 95, no.
Nope.
That's Tragic Kingdom, Melancholy Sadness, Nevermind, Sex Music Magic, and
that was before that too.
Yeah. That's the type of stuff.
And that's part. Blood Sugar Sex Magic is like
Blood Sugar Sex Magic. There we go.
Is dance music for sure, but it's pretty dark too.
It's pretty dark. No. I remember that record. I love that album.
It's an amazing record. And we'll have another episode that
we're probably going to have something. Yeah, we're probably going to cover a song or two off that album, I would imagine. Now this is one of those things. I don't know how much of an Oasis fan this song is about to make me more than I already was privy to, but I do want to know more about these brothers and their story now. So this was cool for me. I love information and digs. So now I want to like go pull up some of their stuff. You know what I mean? Some of the interviews.
Go watch their MTV Unplugged performance.
Right. The MTV Unplugged thing was the first thing I was thinking. I was like, I want to see that.
No, he really is. He's sitting in the balcony because even the MTV people didn't know he was there until he started shouting at the stage. And Noel is kind of frustrated, but also, I mean, just that's my brother. Like that's the kind of that he does. Like
Yes,
that's
this is why I hate him.
exactly. This is why we all hate him. No, we haven't talked about the lyrics of the song really at all. I don't know that we need to particularly, but
The lyrics are kind of and that's what I mean. Beatles inspired, but could never be the Beatles. Well, they're not touchy. They're
mhm,
catchy, but they're not touchy. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Or not as thoughtful as Beatles
mhm,
lyrics are. They're missing the thought and the touch
yeah,
that the Beatles provide. You know what I mean?
yeah.
But that's John Lennon and Paul McCartney doing
That's
most of
that's
the
Paul McCartney is
song.
probably the best rock and roll
It's just
songwriter that has
different.
ever lived. Like
Wow, that's heavy to hear you say that. Who would you put there with Paul McCartney?
as
Songwriter.
songwriting wise,
Yes.
some of the people we've talked about before, actually, Joni Mitchell's in that
I was about to say you.
in that world.
Yep.
Um, like as a pure songwriter, John Lennon probably is too, and Paul Simon probably,
Okay.
Kurt Cobain probably is too, honestly.
Okay. I
But
love. You know how I
but
feel.
but but Paul McCartney is like
He's got the
I
catalog.
saw. I'll see if I can make a comparison and then pull it off. Um, the there's a documentary that I saw like a clip of on YouTube where Rick Rubin's talking about Jay-Z recording 99 Problems and him just coming in there and like doing stuff off the top of his head that's psychotic genius. Paul McCartney can do the same thing with um he's just I mean, and maybe, and obviously he works at it and he's 70 and he does he's been practicing a long time, but he's one of those guys that feels like he could just sit down the piano and play whatever and it be
Oh, right,
he's
right. I
that
mean,
kind of like crazy genius, which is why the story of him, dying in a car crash and like them replacing him is absurd. Like there's nobody else that can do that like
there's
this.
nobody can do what he does, is what you're saying.
No.
So, not to drift too far off topic, because I know we probably need to jump back on and then jump out of here.
Yeah.
Was Paul McCartney a better songwriter than John Lennon when they were together in their prime? Like for most of the songs, Paul's.
He was he was a more prolific songwriter for
There we
sure.
go. Well, John's more
Um,
charismatic in the star. Paul's a better
it
songwriter.
it and it switched too
It switched.
because more of the songs earlier in their career, through Revolver, Sergeant Pepper, White Album, that's where it starts to change. Um, Many of those songs earlier are more John singing. In Hard Day's Night, in Rubber Soul's like half and half probably, but the and it starts changing, and by the end, um, most of the famous latter half Beatles songs are McCartney songs. Um, or Let It Be is, Hey Jude is, Sergeant Pepper, like Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band is, When I'm 64 is, um, let's see, what I mean, Come Together is, like all of those songs are McCartney songs. Um, and Lennon has some, but they tell stories about the two of them. And this is a huge sidebar, I know, but like they tell stories about the two of them, like that John and Ringo or whatever would be like sitting out in the garden drinking tea or whatever and like relaxing, and Paul would be the one to come in there. So like, hey guys, let's write some songs. Like he's the one that's like driving a lot of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Other guys just like to get high more.
I mean,
I don't know.
I mean, at the late '60s, yeah,
It's
probably, yeah.
They just like to get high more than him. He's the worker. There's always a worker in the group. I'm not saying that
Yeah.
to be funny. There's
No,
always
no,
one guy in the group.
he is the one that is
yeah. Doesn't like to get
he's the one who's driving a lot of it, for
right.
sure.
Yeah. There's always one person in there. I just see. I've always known, as somebody from the outside looking into the spirit, it's always been looked at that they were co-driving forces. But the more I dig into it, that's why I was asking about the Paul thing, because it looks like he was more of the driving force.
And his melodic sense is one of the greatest ever. Like,
yes.
like
I can agree with that.
Like he's unreal.
Well, when I bought up well, Who Belongs with all the greatest, rock songwriters, and you went, well, Joni Mitchell, John Lennon. I'm thinking, well, they got two of the five greatest rock and roll songwriters in their group. So anybody that's trying to comparatively pattern themselves after them is always going to fall short. But,
always.
Yeah, because
they probably also had 3 of the top 20 too, because George Harrison also was
George Harrison's right. So that's never happening again.
No,
musically ever. But you can have a nice little 2-album run like Oasis. And that's my takeaway from that. It's like no. You can get a little glory.
yeah, you get a little of that. No, this is one of those details. I feel like it was Q Magazine that did this, and like, I mean, I've read hundreds of like the greatest albums in rock and roll history, whatever, articles, and the greatest American ones and the greatest British ones and the greatest whatever. The only rock and roll top whatever list that this one was British, I believe. The only like top 100 list I've ever seen that didn't have a Beatles album as number one was Oasis's Definitely Maybe was first. And I think probably they did that for, magazine sales, but it's the only list I've ever seen that had anything other than a Beatles album first. And Definitely Maybe, like, front to back, is a really good record too. It's not just this song. They have a lot of really good songs on it. So
I was actually, go ahead.
That's all.
I was actually thinking when you brought up Q Magazine, Q actually named Juicy as the number one hip hop song of all time.
Oh, cool. That's a coming full circle, right? I mean,
coming full circle, totally. Yep. They got Juicy. I mean, and Juicy is just one of those things. See, this is that's why I was bringing up Ready to Die. And like, album tracks matter so much in the hip hop community. I think in ways that they don't matter in other communities, because like I said, when you go look at Juicy, like if people from another planet were to come here and they were to just read the literature, based on what they read, they would think Juicy is by far the best song on Ready to Die. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because it reads like that. People in the hip hop community do not feel that way. I don't know one person that thinks Juicy is the best song on Ready to Die.
I think it's the most famous song on Ready to Die.
Easily.
But I mean, I don't know enough to speak on the best, but I mean, I know it's the most famous because
that's a whole nother show. But that literally is a whole nother show. Ready to Die is one of the 15 best rap albums that's ever been made. So,
oh yeah, there's so many good songs on there. Like, it's one of those things that you like click on and you look at the track list and you're like, oh yeah, all these songs are really good. Like, not just Columbia's really, that's one of my favorite ones. Rock and Roll Star is great. Supersonic's great. Cigarettes and Alcohol is great. A lot of them are you should. I mean, it's one of those, like, you told me to go listen to all of Good Kid, Mad City. You should listen to all of Definitely Maybe. It's a really good record all the way through.
When I put Definitely up, Definitely Maybe immediately popped up, so it's definitely something.
Yeah. I think you would like it. It comes, and even from the first song is called Rock and Roll Star. Like, so it is intended as not just personality wise from the brothers, as a response to the navel gaze depressive stuff from the early 90s, but the track list is organized on purpose. It's going to start playing Rock and Roll Star, and I'm going to have to turn this volume down so I don't get a copyright strike. But the lyrics to Rock and Roll Star are, I live my life for the stars that shine. People say it's just a waste of time. Then they said I should feed my head. That to me was just a day in bed. I'll take my car and drive real far. They're not concerned about the way we are. And in my mind, my dreams are real. Now we're concerned about the way I feel. Tonight, I'm a rock and roll star. Like, that is the chorus to the first song on that album. That is a manifesto in very much the same way that Juicy is. In very much the same way as Maybe I Just Want to Fly, I Want to Live, Don't Want to Die. Maybe I Just Want to Breathe. Maybe I Just Don't Believe. Maybe You're the Same as Me. We see things they'll never see. You and I are going to live forever. That is one of the most unifying sentiments that the two brothers ever had together. I don't think Noah was writing about his brother when he said, "You and I are going to live forever," but but
art takes shape.
he's talking to the audience, right? Like,
but art takes shape and imitates life oftentimes. I mean, you know, the artist that I cover kind of predicted his own demise and his own death on his second album. So,
yeah. I mean, he named 2 albums "Ready to Die" and "Life After Death." I mean, that's pretty prescient.
Well, how about this? Definitely, maybe ends with "Married with Children." "Ready to Die" ends very much the same way. Suicidal thoughts.
Wow.
All right.
That's. I feel like we should almost stop there. I really wanted to ask you too. Do we think of Biggie in a better way? And you can think of Tupac this way too, actually, as greater because he died, like Kurt Cobain. Like, you asked me the same question about Kurt. I want to ask the same about Big. Like, is his legend bigger because he died, or is he that great?
Both. Okay, so in Tupac's case, Tupac had done enough material, at least, and had left enough material that we kind of, like, I didn't know where Pac, how about this? Pac was in the middle of making the best music of his career when he died. Like, he had found his stride and was on his stretch run.
Okay.
But he had also, you know, made a lot of material already, you know, so his place musically a little bit more firmly cemented. I think where Big kind of gets overrated, but rightfully so, is because, like I told you, we've never seen, like, he's a really great MC on Ready to Die. The guy on Life After Death is arguably the greatest rapper that ever lived. Okay.
For one, but you only get him on one album.
But you only get that guy on one album. So the overrated comes from a lot of people will turn and then say, well, all the stuff Big made here was great and he was the best when he died. What if he would have just kept on? You get what I'm saying? Yeah. Like when Tupac died, he was 2 years removed from having made Dear Mama. You feel what I'm saying? He had already had a seminal type of rap moment and song. He had a few already by the time he died. With Biggie, it felt like it kind of got cut short. And so when it gets cut short, a lot of people from my era, you know, inflate that because of. According to hip hop, I have a lot of younger cats. It's like, well, y'all can't inflate him. He only made 2 albums. That's not fair to everybody else. And we always tell them, you weren't there, dude. It's like this. I don't care what anybody says. You can watch all the highlight reels, and I bought them up early. You can watch all the highlight reels of Barry Sanders you want. We watched those games.
Yeah. He was unreal.
Right. We watched Detroit Lions teams that had no business ever competing at anything win whole games at times because that guy
because of him.
He would literally make a run or two and they would win because of that. Well, that's different. And so when you give me somebody like even LaDainian Tomlinson or Adrian Peterson, I'm like, no, all-time great. They're not Barry Sanders.
No, they didn't make you like stand up like when you're watching like how about this? Like kind of that Tampa Bay
defense?
Yeah.
That's one of the all-time greatest defenses. He had 2 200-yard games against them in one season the year before they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Hello. You feel what I'm saying?
He's another one of those guys that stopped before like he had to as well.
Right.
Like,
that's why I brought him up. He stopped before anybody's like, well, you never seen him bad. And it's like, no, but I seen him. And it's like, no, give me 10 years of him over anybody, like pretty much except for like maybe Walter Payton or Jim Brown.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so that's the kind of rule that I have with Biggie. It's like, because I always tell people, Nas is the greatest MC of all time to me. But had he lived, do I think he's number one? Yep. Without question.
Right.
And so
I mean, it was not in comparison to Barry Sanders too, and many of the other people you would bring up, the Kendrick Lamars of the world or whatever, that it wasn't Biggie's choice to stop, right? Like he didn't decide, oh, I'm just not going to do this anymore.
He was getting better when he that's what I mean. Like he was somebody that was already considered to be in the conversation, and he was getting progressively better. So it was kind of like we didn't know what to do with that. It was like, hold on, it's like this happened. You know, like I always tell people, the best rappers I ever heard is Rakim in 1988, Nas from like Rakim pretty much from like when you hear Narkim in 86, pretty much to 88,
mm-hmm.
Nas from 94 to 96, and Big in 1997 on Life After Death, those are the three greatest MCs I've ever heard. So it's
and nobody thinks Oasis is one of the greatest bands ever, like the most talented bands ever. Like they're not in that conversation at all. But are they a band whose albums I put on all the time and listen to, like when I'm driving places? Absolutely. Like what's the Story Morning Glory was the album that I wrote like 80% of my papers in college to. Like it was just like background music and played and listened to while I wrote. It is not background music, but it works as background music because I know the melodies well enough and you can kind of sing along but not really pay attention to it.
I'm gonna give you a group because I just thought about like maybe some hip hop context. They do totally different things stylistically, but I think sometimes people forget that NWA only made 2 albums and 1 EP, and only 1 album with Ice Cube, who was the voice of the main group. And so it's one of those things when people are like, well, NWA is, you know, the best rap group ever. I'm like, not even top 5 really to me. And that's not to be disrespectful, but it's like, look at it. It's like, well, how can you say they're better than De La Soul, Tribe Called Quest, and Outkast? Like, look at the material.
Public Enemy, yeah, sure.
Public Enemy. It's like, well, those guys made 2 albums and an EP, and their best rapper left after the first album. Right. So, you know, it's one of those things where I think NWA struck a chord for a moment in time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think what you're talking about, Oasis, is a comparable thing. I think they struck a chord in a moment in time. And part of the reason they struck a chord is very similar to why NWA struck a chord. Well, NWA is the antithesis to what Public Enemy was, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
To a people, just like Oasis, the way you're contextualizing it, is the antithesis to the anti-fame American rock. You know?
Absolutely.
And so their success for those moments in time have something to do with the parameters of what's going on around them as well, not just the music.
Yep, exactly. That seems like a good place to stop. Actually, that's perfect.
Yeah, I think that is perfect. That was actually great. I actually love how that came together.
Yeah.
See how stuff always is starting to come together. It always kind of
it does. And this one, you're right. This one is going to be longer.